You're watching Single Process with Joe and Bob. We created this video guide to help you navigate the difficult process of divorce, and we hope it helps in your journey. Our topic on this segment is parenting plans and custody.
Yeah, I'll start with this one. I think this is a scary, scary topic for people, right?
It really is.
Because things get caustic in the divorce and somebody will threaten, I'm going to take the kids from you, you're never going to see your kids again.
And you don't know if it's true, right?
You've been bullied. So luckily we have Jill Bicks with us, and Jill is a divorce attorney with Pullman and Comley in Connecticut.
So talk to us about the parenting plan and custody. We know it's one of the most important things you're going to negotiate in the divorce process, and it gets people's emotions on high alert.
Yeah, well, I want to respond to what you said, Barb, which is people are terrified that in a divorce they're going to lose their children, and one child, and one parent will say to the other, I'm going to take the children from you. And that doesn't happen.
Why doesn't that happen? What typically does happen?
What typically happens is there are two aspects of custody. There's decision making about children and how children are going to share time with each parent.
What are those terms legally? So, because when you come across the terms legally, it's good to know what they actually mean.
No, that's a great question, because the legal terms are scary. Legal custody versus sole legal custody, joint legal custody, that's simply about decision making.
Just decision making.
Just decision, not only decision making, but about three topics: health, education, and religion. When people learn that, they think, oh, that's what joint custody means?
You think it means so much more.
You think it means time in a residential home
environment.
That's what I think it means.
Well, that's the second piece.
Okay.
So that's the second piece. The second piece is residential custody. What does that mean? It's basically a schedule. How do the children go back and forth between two homes? And so much of the other stuff that people want to control is not relevant to custody. A judge is not going to tell you your child has to go to bed at 8 p.m. and can't eat candy, after 7. And there's so much about what happens in custody litigation that really is just about the parents fighting over controlling each other.
Control.
Because that would bother me, actually. I mean, if my former spouse wasn't adhering to the rules that we had when we were married, I'd be miffed about that. I'd want...
You can't control that.
Well, that's annoying to me. Yes, that's very hard for me. but to your point, it's not worth fighting about.
Bob.
Not only is it not worth fighting about, you're not going to get that result at the end of the day.
So I want to back up 1 second. Do legal and residential or physical custody go hand in hand, or are they two separate things? So if you're granted joint custody, is that both, or is that just joint legal custody?
Well, almost always you're going to have joint legal custody and some parenting plan.
Okay.
So you started out, what about a parenting plan? Well, the idea is to look at what works for kids.
Okay.
And when you start thinking about it from the perspective of children, it changes everything. But so many people walk into my office and say, I want 50-50 custody, as if their children are like chairs in their home. And I'm going to have one chair and you're going to have one chair. No, they're children. And you think about what their lives are like. And if you start focusing on what they do and what their activities are, it becomes actually not that hard to figure out what the schedule is. Once you get over that feeling like they're not going to live with me 100% of the time. And that's just the reality of divorce.
Yeah. So if, let's say you get 50-50 custody and something changes, like your spouse ends up working more hours or loses a job and has more time with the kids. Is a parenting plan fluid?
Well, that's such a great question, because that's the other part of custody. It's never final. Never.
It's never final.
Never final. Never final. You can always go into court and change it. You can change the amount of child support, which is a whole other topic, but how the children's schedule works can always be changed.
Going to court is an onerous process. It's expensive. It takes time. So you have to go into court to change a parenting plan post-divorce?
No, you don't have to, and you really shouldn't ever be in court ever about your children, because this is the dirty little secret. People think divorce is so hard on children and the poor children. Study after study shows that the only thing that's bad for children is fighting about the children.
That's such a good point. That is, if everyone could just keep that in mind. I've heard stories where people are fighting about the hour of drop-off. You know, I come at 4, not at 5, and they're not flexible. What's the point? I mean,
I know. What should you do about that?
Yeah.
If someone's not adhering to the schedule, do you fight about that? Do you kind of let it go?
Well, what I like to do, honestly, as a lawyer, I really believe that so much about what's happening with the children is better dealt with in a therapeutic process.
Okay.
So see someone who's mindful about children and their developmental needs, who can help you work through these details.
That's a good idea.
Do you have a kid who's really going to thrive if they have a regular schedule and is going to fall apart if their schedule isn't regular? And maybe you have 3 children, one of whom is like that, and the other ones are fine. So if you're always focusing on the children,
you'll
you
come
never
to the right
ever
solution.
have to be back in court.
What say do the kids have, and at what point can they say, I really don't want to go to dad's or mom's, or, you know, they just...
My 3-year-old is really fighting on seeing dad. Good. Yeah.
Okay, well, that is...
doesn't have a 3-year-old.
I know, no, but that is such a loaded question because, you know, you come from it, and when you talked about Child Advocates of Connecticut, that was an organization that worked in the child protection system, foster kids. And what I learned there is children who were basically abused and neglected by their parents still love their parents and still want to have both parents in their lives. So if you get to a situation where a child is rejecting a parent, there's a problem there. It's either a hugely problematic parent behaving badly, or that custodial parent, the parent who's mostly doing the parenting, is alienating that child from the other parent. So that really requires therapeutic
intervention.
It's interesting, in cases of abuse, to touch on this, parents still get to see their kids. In cases of abuse, so if your ex is threatening, you're never going to see the kids again. I mean, that's a pretty...
Well, so that's what
That's
I
not
say.
gonna happen.
Whenever a client or a potential client walks into my door and says, my husband or my wife is threatening to take away the kids, I said, well, just ignore it. It's noise. It's never going to happen. I have worked with families where they don't feed their children, they beat them with belts, and they don't lose their right to be with their children, to parent.
This is not incentive to beat your child.
No.
That's an interesting comment. Now, to talk about, so you know, I've shared with you that we did a nesting agreement where we kept the kids before the divorce was finalized and even post-divorce in one house so we weren't shuffling them back and forth. In hindsight, I'm not sure, did we do more damage to our kids by not just pulling the plug and defining things for them from a legal standpoint?
How did it work for you?
I did
don't
it too,
know.
and I thought it was awful.
I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know. That's just what we chose. So I think for some of the kids it worked great. For some, maybe not as well.
Well, I think that, you know, what most people find is that the notion of dividing their family, not having every holiday together, not
Tough.
each one seeing their kid every day, that is so hard. That's a real loss, which is the nature of divorce. Divorce is, you know, a death. And that loss of your daily contact with your children, that's really painful. That's
I think
really
it's the hardest part
Yeah.
for most parents.
So from a legal standpoint, what are parents screwing up? What advice would you impart to people watching this?
I would say, do not fight about your children. Do not have a custody fight. Don't go to court about this. See a really fabulous mental health professional who can help you understand what your kids need and how to keep them out of the middle of your divorce. You're divorcing your spouse. You're not divorcing your children.
kids. Jill, that is absolutely terrific advice. Thank you
Perfect.
so much.
Thank you for having me. This is great series what you're doing.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jill.
Thanks. For more advice on this topic and others, please visit singleprocess.me.